Spoilers are to follow, so you have been warned. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein finally arrives on Netflix in 2025 after years in development, and it's not what you expect. This is a 2.5-hour gothic tragedy starring Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, Jacob Elordi as the creature, and Mia Goth as Elizabeth. It opens with an Arctic expedition discovering a dying Victor pursued by his seemingly unkillable creation, and then it flashes back to tell the full story. Victor's traumatic childhood under his cruel father, played by Charles Dance, his obsessive quest to conquer death, the creation and immediate abandonment of the creature's education by a blind man in the woods, played by David Bradley, and the devastating wedding night where Victor accidentally shoots Elizabeth while trying to kill the creature he's rejected. By the end, the creature, having learned language, literature, and love, forgives his dying creator and saves the ship's crew before facing eternity alone. The plot isn't the revelation here. What makes this work is how Del Toro tells it. Let's talk about James Whale's 1931 Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. That film is an absolute icon. 70 minutes of pure B-movie horror that established the universal monster pantheon, created the mad scientist archetype, gave us Igor the hunchback assistant, and delivered It's Alive into pop culture immortality. It established so much famous Halloween imagery: the flat-top monster, the crackling laboratory, the lightning strike bringing dead flesh to life. And here's the thing, Whale's film is a reduction of Mary Shelley's novel, and that's not a criticism. It streamlined a complex philosophical tragedy into efficient genre exercise because that's what audiences needed in 1932. Horror was new. The gothic imagery, the medical experimentation, the hubris of playing God, these were fresh concepts, and the film worked because it simplified, creating something iconic precisely by cutting away Shelley's themes about abandonment, education, and the monstrousness of neglect. It's a foundational horror film. It launched 1,000 imitators. It's important cinematic history. It's a lot of fun, but it's not deep. The creature is a shambling, grunting monster. Victor is a straightforward, mad scientist. There's no exploration of what it means to create sentient life and refuse to love it. It's a perfect horror movie at the expense of being a human story. In Frankenstein 2025, Mia Goth's Elizabeth is the point of reason in the movie, and in Frankenstein 1931, she's just a screaming caricature who does nothing. And every subsequent adaptation has chased that horror legacy. I, Frankenstein turned it into an action fantasy nonsense. Victor Frankenstein tried buddy cop revisionism. Even Kenneth Branagh's 1994 version, which attempted faithfulness, couldn't escape horror conventions. Del Toro does something radical. He brings back the heart of Shelley's work by rejecting horror entirely. This is not really a scary movie, and that's exactly what makes it succeed. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely horrific moments and creepy imagery and the grotesque surgical details when Victor assembles the body, the creature's first rampage on the ship, the brutal wolf attacks, but these serve the tragedy rather than defining it. Del Toro understands that Shelley wrote a deeply human story about creation and abandonment, about how monsters are made through cruelty rather than born. The genius here is that the creature is unambiguously the hero by the end. Victor creates life, imprisons it, refuses to educate it, tries to murder it, accidentally shoots Elizabeth while aiming at the creature, then spends years hunting his creation across the Arctic. The creature, meanwhile, learns to read Milton and Plutarch, forms a genuine friendship with a blind man, mourns loss, and ultimately forgives the man who abandoned him. When he pushes the ship free from the ice to save the crew that feared him, when he reaches towards the sunrise, having learned grace despite a lifetime of rejection, he's the hero and Victor is the monster. And that's the movie. It's really great and really different. This inversion is what Shelley actually wrote, but it's the opposite of what audiences expect from Frankenstein. Most adaptations reduce the creature to a mindless threat. Del Toro and Elordi give us a being who articulates his loneliness with philosophical sophistication, who's fundamentally gentle until repeatedly traumatized by human cruelty. So why does this work as a Halloween movie if it's not scary? Because Halloween isn't just about jump scares, it's about atmosphere, about gothic aesthetics, about confronting what it means to be monstrous. Del Toro creates film that drips with period detail: candlelit chambers, storm-racked laboratories, fog-shrouded forests, characters speaking in heightened formal language. Every frame feels like a romantic painting come to life. And this is a Netflix movie, so I honestly was very skeptical, but the man behind the camera does a great job. The costumes are sumptuous without feeling like a costume drama. These feel like clothes people actually wore, not museum pieces. The sets are lived in and tactile, from Victor's lab with its surgical equipment to the cozy farmhouse where the creature learns language, to the Arctic wasteland of the final confrontation. The lighting, often by candlelight or lightning, creates this expressionistic shadow that recall classic horror without tripping into camp. This exists in the same lineage as Del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water, movies that find humanity in the inhuman, that make monsters sympathetic without diminishing their otherness. It's gothic in the truest sense, dark romantic, concerned with mortality and the sublime, beautiful and terrible at once. There's something comforting about its old-fashioned quality. In an era of frenetic editing and constant stimulation, Frankenstein asks you to settle in, to let it unfold at its own deliberate pace. It's a film for stormy October evenings, for when you want atmosphere and emotion rather than adrenaline. And I saw this projected on 35mm film at the Paris Theater in New York before the Netflix release. I saw this the Friday it came out, and it was glorious. But let's be honest, the general audience isn't clamoring to see a 2.5-hour slow burn period tragedy in theaters. This needs to be the right audience and the right circumstances. Netflix gets criticized, rightfully so, for churning out cheap-looking content, Red Notice, Lift, expensive films that feel like they were shot in warehouses with green screens doing all the heavy lifting. And yes, Del Toro's Frankenstein absolutely uses CGI backgrounds. The frozen Arctic tundra, the impossibly tall tower Victor climbs during the lightning storm, various establishing shots. If you're looking for it, you can tell. But here's the crucial difference. The story is doing the heavy lifting, not the visuals. Think about David Fincher's The Killer on Netflix, which uses extensive CGI. You barely notice because the narrative is so precisely crafted. Del Toro operates on the same principle. When Victor scales his tower to attach lightning conductors during a storm, yes, it's a digital effect, but the shot is composed beautifully, held for the right duration, lit to create expressionistic drama. You're not thinking about technical execution, you're absorbed in it, in Victor's obsessive determination in the gothic grandeur of the moment. Compare this to modern Marvel films, which have become content rather than cinema. They used to have visual language that supported the narrative. I mean, I thought Civil War had a good cinematography. The airport fight had spatial clarity and purpose. Now Marvel films are shot coverage style by directors who are essentially traffic controllers for VFX teams. The visuals exist to move plot forward without creating memorable images. Del Toro does the opposite. Every shot has intentionality. When the creature emerges from the ocean and wanders through the fog-shrouded forest, the composition emphasizes his isolation. When Victor's lab burns, the flames and shadows recall German expressionist cinema. When the creature fights off wolves, the violence is brutal but purposeful. Nothing is here just to look cool, everything serves the story. On Netflix, where you can pause, where you can watch in segments if needed, where the slower pace becomes comforting rather than tedious, this film thrives. It's a movie to sink into, not power through. The platform actually enhances the experience because it allows the kind of contemplative viewing this story demands. Oscar Isaac brings devastating complexity to Victor. Brilliant, arrogant, traumatized, ultimately broken. He's not a cackling mad scientist, but a damaged man trying to fix death and destroying everyone in the process. You understand his motivations even as you're horrified by his choices. Jacob Elordi delivers career-defining work as the creature. In Euphoria, he played one-note toxic masculinity as Nate Jacobs. He was good in it, but he didn't have much to work with. In Saltburn, he was charming, but not particularly challenged. Here he goes through an extraordinary emotional arc, from newborn innocence to articulate philosopher to heartbroken outcast to tragic hero. The physicality alone is impressive. He's massive and threatening when needed, but he's also capable of incredible tenderness. When he comforts Elizabeth as she dies or reaches toward the sunrise in the final shot, it's genuinely moving. Mia Goth is perfectly cast as Elizabeth, not just the love interest, but Victor's moral opposite. Immediately recognizing the creature's humanity, she has this ethereal quality that works beautifully for period films, but she can also bring real strength. When she embraces the creature at the wedding, it's the bravest act in the entire film, and she brings a ton of emotion to it. It's honestly one of the most emotional movies I've seen her in. She's very good in movies like Pearl and X, but just here she has a very emotional arc that's very convincing. It reminded me of A Cure for Wellness, which she was really good in, just has the same gothic quality. The supporting cast is great too. Charles Dance as Victor's cruel father, he's so good, so well cast. He's 70 or older, but he plays his dad and it works. Christoph Waltz makes Harlander wonderfully sleazy. Ralph Ineson is in this. He's got a great voice. It just adds texture to a small role, and David Bradley as the blind man is quietly devastating. The only person who judges the creature by his character rather than appearance. Everyone understands they're in a gothic tragedy, not a horror movie. It's just one of those movies where you have this A-list cast, and it's great because it's obviously entertaining because they're the big A-list actors right now, but they also are perfectly cast, and it's not just because they're famous. When Jacob Elordi was announced to replace Andrew Garfield, I seriously thought, is this because, Jacob Elordi's a big name? But for a Guillermo del Toro movie, who's a true artist, that wouldn't make sense. And it does make sense now because Jacob Elordi is really great in this movie. This is probably one of his best roles to date. And he really does bring this strength that, Guillermo del Toro said he cast him because of his eyes. There's this physicality, but also an emotional quality he brings. So it's just great casting, and it doesn't feel forced. There's an authenticity to this movie that makes it great. This is the Frankenstein adaptation we've been waiting for, not because it's the most faithful to every detail of the novel, but because it understands what Shelley was writing about, how we create monsters through our own cruelty, and how sometimes the monsters are more human than we are. In an era of disposable content, this is cinema. It's art, it's special, and it absolutely deserves your time this Halloween season. So guys, make sure to check out Frankenstein on Netflix November 7th. See it in the theaters if you can catch it. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.